In 1850 Alabama, a slave carpenter was ordered to build his master a fine bed, elegant, worthy of a wealthy planter. But what the master didn't know was that his craftsman had a darker design in mind. This bed was no gift of comfort. It was a coffin waiting to close around him. Alabama in 1850 was a world built on cotton, wealth, and chains. Plantations stretched 4 miles, their fields filled with enslaved laborers whose lives were ground down by endless work. Yet not all enslaved men were sent to the fields. Some, by skill or circumstance, were set apart as artisans. Blacksmiths, cooks, masons, carpenters. The carpenter in our story was one of these men. His hands were calloused from the saw, the chisel, the hammer. He shaped wood into tables, chairs, doors, wagons, fine things he could never own, serving households that denied him even the right to his own name. To his master, he was a tool, nothing more. But to the other enslaved men and women, he was respected because he possessed knowledge, and knowledge was dangerous. This carpenter lived in bondage under a master whose cruelty was notorious. The man took pride in his wealth, and pride in his punishments. To him, the carpenter's skill was not a blessing, but another possession to flaunt. He would order new furnishings as whims struck him, forcing the carpenter to labor day and night. And if the work displeased him, the whip came down. That summer, in 1850, the master demanded something new. A bed of the finest quality. Strong enough to last a lifetime. Ornate enough to impress guests. Large enough for his comfort. The carpenter bowed his head, obeyed, and returned to his shop. But inside, he was already making plans. The carpenter's workshop was little more than a rough shed. Inside, the smell of sawdust clung to the air, and the sound of the saw echoed late into the night. He worked with precision, shaping every beam, smoothing every panel, carving every joint. But what his master did not know was that every detail carried a hidden purpose. His daily life was misery. He rose before dawn to build not for himself, but for the man who owned him. He watched the planter's children play on furniture he had made, watched guests praise the fine craftsmanship while he stood in the shadows, invisible. His body bore scars from punishment. His spirit bore scars from humiliation. But in his tools, he found something rare. Power? The carpenter knew how to shape wood not just for beauty, but for function. He understood weight, pressure, and balance. He knew how to build strength and how to build weakness. His master wanted a bed that would last a lifetime, and so the carpenter gave him exactly that. A bed that would carry him to his final rest. The plan took shape slowly. He designed the bed frame to be solid and ornate on the outside, but hollow within. He built the slats to give way under sudden weight, to collapse like a trapdoor. And beneath the bed, he constructed a hidden compartment, a coffin, waiting. Every strike of the hammer was an act of defiance disguised as obedience. Every joint he fitted was a whisper of vengeance. By day, he endured his master's cruelty. By night, he built his justice. Meanwhile, the plantation around him celebrated. Alabama was alive with the wealth of cotton. White planters gathered at feasts, toasting their prosperity, while the enslaved carried trays and bowed their heads. The contradictions were everywhere. Freedom was praised from pulpits and porches, while thousands remained in bondage. The carpenter knew the hypocrisy well. He had heard his master boast of liberty, quote scripture, and then turned to beat him with the same hands that held a Bible. To live under such cruelty was to live in silence. But silence can be sharpened into a blade. The bed was completed in late summer. It stood tall, heavy, carved with flourishes that spoke of pride. To the master, it was a throne for his sleep. To the carpenter, it was a coffin dressed as a gift. The night came. The house was quiet, the air heavy with the buzzing of cicadas. The master, pleased with his new bed, retired to his room. The carpenter, somewhere in the quarters, listened for the sounds of the house settling. The bed stood like a monument in the center of the chamber. Its posts rose high, its frame gleamed in the lamplight. The master lay upon it, perhaps smug in his wealth, perhaps drunk from the evening. He stretched out across the mattress, never knowing the danger beneath him. And then it happened. With a groan of wood, the bed gave way. The slats split, the supports collapsed, and the master plunged downward. What had looked like a bed revealed itself as a coffin, swallowing him whole. The heavy lid crashed shut, sealing him inside. Imagine the terror in that moment, the sudden darkness, the crushing weight, the realization too late that comfort had become a trap. He thrashed, pounded, shouted. But the walls of the coffin were strong, reinforced by the very carpenter he had beaten and humiliated. The house stirred with noise, footsteps rushing, doors opening. By the time the others reached him, it was too late. The coffin bed had done its work. The master's breath was silenced within the very piece of furniture he had demanded. One bed, one night, one act of vengeance, carved in wood and sealed in darkness. The aftermath spread like wildfire. A master dead in his own bed, a bed turned coffin by the hands of his slave. The enslaved carpenter could not have expected to escape. Acts of rebellion were punished with unspeakable cruelty. Poisoners, arsonists, runaways all faced torture and execution. For a man accused of killing his master, there was no mercy. The record does not tell us his exact fate, but history offers little doubt. He would have been seized, interrogated, and executed swiftly. But his act left something behind. Fear. Word of the coffin bed rippled through Alabama, whispered among planters as a warning, and among slaves as a story of resistance. Masters grew uneasy. Every piece of furniture crafted by enslaved hands carried a new threat. Was that chair built to break beneath them? Was that staircase cut to collapse? They lived in luxury, but luxury built by those they oppressed could always turn against them. For the enslaved, the story of the carpenter became folklore, passed in hushed voices around fires, told in the cabins at night. It was a tale of justice delivered in silence. He had taken the skills forced upon him and turned them into a weapon. He had made his master's bedand, made it his grave. Whether or not every detail is verifiable, the legend matters, because it reveals something essential about slavery, that the enslaved were not powerless. They resisted, they rebelled, and sometimes they turned the very symbols of wealth into instruments of death. This was the story of the slave carpenter of Alabama, who in 1850 built a bed that became a coffin. His name may be lost, his fate erased, but his act survives as a haunting reminder of resistance in the darkest of times. And he was not alone. For every carpenter, every cook, every field hand, there were untold stories of defiance buried by history. Each one whispers the same truth. The enslaved fought back. Always. If you want more hidden stories like this, check out our full playlist here. And don't forget to subscribe because these voices deserve to be remembered.